You stay in the job where your ideas get stolen by your manager. You answer texts from the friend who vanished for 6 months until they needed a favor. You smile through dinner with the partner who forgot your birthday for the 3rd year running. And what makes it worse is that you know you are doing it. You see yourself accepting less. You feel the resignation in your chest like a stone, but you stay anyway. This is not about self-esteem books or affirmations. Your brain has physical systems that make you tolerate neglect. The same neural circuits that kept your ancestors alive in the grasslands are now trapping you in situations that slowly hollow you out. And until you understand the machinery, you will keep making the same choice. The choice to stay quiet, to give more, to accept the crumbs and call it a meal. Your brain becomes a smoke detector for social pain. When someone disrespects you, this region lights up on an fMRI scan the same way it does when you break your arm. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA discovered this by having participants play a virtual ball-tossing game. When the other players excluded them, their brains registered it as physical injury. Not metaphorical pain, actual pain. But this is not even the worst part. Your brain has a second system that learns to tolerate that pain. It is called hedonic adaptation, and it operates through your dopamine pathways. When you first accept disrespect, your ventral striatum protests. The neurons fire, signaling something is wrong. But if the disrespect continues, those same neurons start to adapt. They reset their baseline. What once felt intolerable becomes your new normal. This is not a weakness. This is neuroplasticity doing exactly what it evolved to do, to help you function in your environment, even when that environment is toxic. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex adds another layer to this trap. This region calculates your value by comparing you to others around you. If everyone in your office accepts being yelled at, your brain calibrates that as normal professional behavior. If all your friends tolerate flaky partners, your threshold drops to match theirs. Robert Sapolsky's work on baboon hierarchies showed this same pattern. Low-ranking baboons have chronically elevated cortisol, not because of their rank, but because they constantly compare themselves to those above them. And cortisol is the final nail. Chronic stress from accepting less literally shrinks your hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory. Studies by Bruce McEwen at Rockefeller University showed that sustained cortisol exposure causes dendritic atrophy. Your brain physically loses the capacity to remember your own worth. You forget what it felt like to be treated well. The neural pathways that stored those memories weaken. You are not imagining that it gets harder to recall your standards over time. Your brain is erasing the evidence. Comment a brain emoji below if you have ever felt your standards slowly disappear without noticing when it happened. Your ancestors lived in groups of 50 to 150 people. That was it. The entire social world. And here is the critical part. If the tribe rejected you, you died. Not eventually. Not metaphorically. You died within days. No group meant no protection from predators, no shared food during scarcity, no one to watch your back while you slept. Exile was a death sentence. So your brain created a simple rule: stay in the group at almost any cost. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar found that early humans spent nearly 20% of their waking hours on social grooming, the primate equivalent of taking abuse from the alpha to maintain your position. Better to be the lowest-ranking member of the tribe than to be alone in the wilderness. Your anterior cingulate cortex, that pain detector we talked about, evolved specifically to make social rejection hurt so badly that you would do anything to avoid it. This made perfect sense for 200,000 years. Then everything changed in the last 200. You now have access to millions of potential groups. You can leave your job and find another. You can end the friendship and make new friends. You can walk away from the bad relationship and meet someone else. The options are functionally infinite, but your brain does not know this. Your brain still treats the threat of losing your current group like a survival emergency. When you imagine quitting the job where your boss humiliates you, your body responds as if you are about to be exiled into the Serengeti alone. Heart rate spikes. Cortisol floods your system. Your brain screams danger, not because the threat is real, but because the alarm system is 50,000 years old and cannot tell the difference between losing your position in a hunter-gatherer band and losing your position at a marketing firm. The mismatch is brutal. You treat temporary work colleagues like irreplaceable tribe members. You cling to romantic partners as if no other humans exist on the planet. You endure years of disrespect from people you could replace in weeks. Your nervous system evolved for a world of scarcity and permanence. It cannot comprehend the abundance and mobility you actually have. So it keeps you trapped in situations your rational mind knows you should leave, whispering the same ancient lie. This group is your only chance. So accept whatever they give you, and be grateful you are still breathing. In 1971, Philip Zimbardo ran the Stanford Prison Experiment. College students were randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners. Within 2 days, the prisoners started accepting abuse they would never tolerate outside. They asked permission to use the bathroom. They accepted being called by numbers instead of names. They internalized their low status so completely that when given the option to quit, most stayed. The experiment was supposed to run 2 weeks. Zimbardo ended it after 6 days because the prisoners had psychologically become prisoners. Their brains had accepted the hierarchy as reality. Harry Harlow's work with rhesus monkeys in the 1950s showed the same pattern with maternal attachment. Baby monkeys clung to wire mothers that gave them nothing but occasional food. Even when a soft cloth mother was available, monkeys who had bonded to the wireframe kept returning to it. Harlow called it attachment, but it was really tolerance of deprivation. The monkeys had neurologically adapted to receiving less, and their brains coded that scarcity as normal love. Corporate data reveals this in humans every quarter. A 2022 study by PayScale found that 61% of underpaid employees know they are underpaid but do not leave. The average tenure at companies where employees report unfair compensation is 4.3 years, not months, but years. Exit interviews reveal the same phrases. It could be worse. At least I have a job. Maybe next year will be different. Their brains have reset the baseline for acceptable treatment downward with each passing month. The neuroscience of domestic abuse shows the darkest version of this mechanism. Research by Christine Heim at Charité University found that abuse survivors show altered activity in the nucleus accumbens, the brain's reward center. Intermittent kindness after periods of cruelty creates stronger dopamine responses than consistent kindness. The unpredictability makes the moments of decent treatment feel like winning the lottery. The brain starts to crave the cycle itself. Victims stay an average of 7 times before leaving permanently. Not because they are weak, but because their reward circuits have been chemically hijacked. A study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience by Eisenberger scanned people while they viewed photos of ex-partners who had rejected them. The anterior cingulate cortex and insula activated identically to physical pain networks. But here is the twist. Participants who scored high on resilience scales showed greater activation in the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, a region associated with emotion regulation. Their brains hurt just as much. They had just built stronger systems to override the pain signals, telling them to return to the source of rejection. The evidence is clear. Your brain does not evaluate relationships rationally. It evaluates them tribally, chemically, and through patterns built for a world that no longer exists. Not all acceptance is surrender. Sometimes your brain is doing exactly what it should. A first-year medical resident accepts brutal hours and harsh feedback because the temporary cost leads to permanent expertise. An immigrant tolerates an exploitative job while learning the language and building a network. An entrepreneur endures months of rejection because each no teaches pattern recognition that the next venture needs. Your brain can distinguish between strategic sacrifice and self-abandonment. The question is whether you are listening to the right signal. The difference lives in brain. When you accept less as part of a deliberate plan with a defined endpoint, neuroimaging shows activation in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region of your brain responsible for future planning and delayed gratification. When you accept less out of fear or habit, the amygdala dominates and the prefrontal cortex goes quiet. One is a choice, the other is a hijacking. You can feel the difference in your body. Strategic patience feels like tension with direction. Fear-based acceptance feels like numbness spreading outward from your chest. And here is the part that self-help culture will not tell you. Some situations require you to accept less temporarily, because leaving too early destroys more than it saves. A parent stays in an imperfect marriage while children are young, not out of weakness but calculated protection. An employee remains in a mediocre job during a recession because the job market has collapsed. These are not failures of boundaries. These are tactical retreats that preserve resources for a better moment. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky documented baboons who accepted subordinate positions during conflicts, then quietly rose in rank when the aggressive alpha died young from stress-related illness. They played the long game. The hidden benefit of your tolerance machinery is that it prevents you from nuking your life every time someone disrespects you. If your brain treated every slight as an existential threat requiring immediate action, you would burn through careers, relationships, and communities like wildfire through dry grass. Some degree of acceptance is the price of civilization. The anterior cingulate cortex that makes rejection hurt also stops you from becoming so fragile that a single bad day sends you into isolation. But there is a darker twist. Sometimes your brain protects you from your own narcissism by making you accept feedback you need to hear. The boss who tells you your work is sloppy might be right. The friend who says you talk too much about yourself might be offering you a mirror. The partner who asks you to contribute more might be holding you accountable. Not all discomfort is mistreatment. Some of it is growth trying to happen through the shell of who you used to be. The protocol is learning to tell the difference. Comment a compass emoji below if you have ever confused strategic patience with just being too scared to leave. Start with a 72-hour audit. For 3 days, track every interaction where you give something like time, energy, money, attention, emotional labor. Then track what comes back. Not what you hope will come back eventually. What actually returns within that same 72 hours. Write it down. The ratio will shock you. Most people discover they operate at a 3-to-1 deficit. 3 acts of giving for every 1 act of receiving. Your brain has normalized this imbalance because it happened gradually, one small concession at a time. The audit makes the invisible visible. Next comes the neuroplasticity reset. Your brain learned to accept less through repetition. It can unlearn the same way. Pick the smallest boundary you have been avoiding, not the biggest, not the relationship-ending confrontation. Tell the friend who always picks the restaurant that you are choosing this time. Say no to 1 extra project at work. Let 1 text go unanswered for 4 hours instead of 4 minutes. When you enforce a small boundary, your brain fires its rejection alarm. Your heart races, your stomach knots. This is the moment. Do not fix it. Do not apologize. Do not explain. Just sit with the discomfort for 90 seconds. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor found that the physiological lifespan of an emotion is 90 seconds. After that, you are choosing to re-trigger it with your thoughts. Survive 90 seconds, and the neural pathway weakens. Repeat this daily for 2 weeks, and you physically rewire the circuit. But here is the catch. You cannot leave the tribe until you have a new one. This is not metaphor. This is survival neuroscience. Your brain will sabotage every attempt to set boundaries if it believes you are heading toward isolation. Before you quit the draining job, start building relationships in your industry. Before you end the one-sided friendship, invest time in people who reciprocate. Before you leave the partner who takes you for granted, reconstruct your social network so you are not exiting into a void. The replacement principle is not about having a backup plan. It is about convincing your limbic system that you will not die alone. The final piece is somatic differentiation. Your body speaks 2 languages that feel identical, but mean opposite things, which is fear and intuition. Both create tension in your chest. Both make your breathing shallow. Both whisper that something is wrong. But fear tries to stop you from changing. Intuition tries to stop you from staying. Here is how to tell them apart. Fear lives in your shoulders and jaw. It makes you clench. Intuition lives in your gut and feels like pulling. Fear gets louder when you move toward the boundary. Intuition gets quieter. Spend 5 minutes in silence before any major decision and map where the sensation lives in your body. Let it tell you whether you are running from growth or toward safety. Your brain will resist all of this. It has spent years building the neural architecture that keeps you accepting less. But architecture can be demolished. Start with the audit. Enforce one small boundary. Find your new tribe before you leave the old one. And learn to hear the difference between the fear that protects you and the fear that imprisons you. The machinery is old, but you are not stuck with the factory settings.